What up, y'all? Ifeigle with FLOWTOX. Black, black, black. Blah. Anyways, that's just me making fun of myself. Yo, it's the ifeigle with FLOWTOX. Anyways, I'm running up here on the north side of Chicago. It is a legitimately cold day. Definitely not motivated to get running, but I've been running for about 15 minutes now. I've warmed up. Things don't seem so bad, as it usually tends to work out with running. Gonna really try to focus on my breath today. Maybe be a little more deliberate in what I'm saying. Although that might be difficult because I really have not much to talk about today. I just saw a peregrine falcon. Might have been a red-tailed hawk. It was freaking huge. It's perched up in a tree above me at the beginning of my walk, or beginning of my run. That's cool. Then I had about 50 geese fly over me. A gaggle. A skein of geese, a thread in the sky of fatty, feathered bodies. Anyways, days like these, it always seems so miserable from inside your house, but once you get out there and you start moving in the day and expose yourself to the elements, that you can actually find the beauty in such dreary and gloomy of forecasts. Anyways, we had our first snow this morning here in Chicago. My daughter and I were at the park walking along the river, and it started coming down. Definitely affected visibility, maybe half-mile visibility. But the winter is upon us. Just sort of have to embrace it and breathe through it. Really, I mean, this channel, this activity I have been partaking in called FLOWTOX is really sort of just a method of therapy for myself, in which I find the vacuum of YouTube to be a non-judgmental space in which I can just sort of expound my thoughts into and not have to worry about their visibility or, I don't know, the judgment that I feel from my local circumstances. I don't feel a judgment in my home, but there have been parts of my life and hobbies that I've partaken in which the people I partake with these hobbies, it becomes like a complex situation. And it becomes competitive, you know. Skill becomes an asset. Skill becomes a form of currency when you have friend groups highly associated with your hobbies and activities. And I feel like going to therapy for the past 2 years and quitting smoking and trying to heal the psychic and nervous system trauma that I've incurred and the hang-ups that I've come to get hung up on. I come to realize sort of the toxicity of how I lived before, the mental toxicity. And I'm mostly talking about musicianship and playing in bands, particularly punk bands, experimental punk bands, DIY bands, indie bands. Dedicated many years of my life to playing in DIY bands and playing music and being wrapped up in music production and the scene and playing shows and getting listened to and playing on the radio. It's what I actively pursued on a daily basis. It's how I spent my off-work hours. I was playing music and pursuing it and trying to get a career out of any aspect of the music industry. Played in bands, played bass in bands, played drums in bands. Went to school for audio engineering, worked in studios, worked in venues, worked in theater, doing sound in various situations. But there seems to be, I found something missing in it for me, missing in my pursuit. And it ended up being all about me and attention being drawn towards me and the work I'm doing and the part I'm playing in the song or the part I wrote or the lyric I wrote or the song I recorded. And become so narcissistic. The whole scene is fed on narcissism. Musicians are fed on narcissism. I mean, really, in the long run, for maybe 90% of the musicians, there's no income for the musicians. They might be getting paid. I mean, there might be some income, but it's little. And a large part of the payment is an attention, and eyes on you, and appreciation. And I just feel like I can't feed that part of myself anymore. It's dangerous to feed that part of me because I fed it for so many years and I tortured myself over it for so many years and compared myself to, you know, other bands in the scene or other musicians and wish I had what they had and all that. But in the end, they, you know, are most likely going to come out the other end of it with the same thing I got, which was nothing other than a conflicted sense of self and an inflated sense of self. And I look back at a lot of the music that I was a part of here in Chicago from 2008 to 2016. And I think about how bland it was, how unexciting it was, how down the middle rock and roll it was, how explicitly we joked about dad rock, how openly we held our esteem for classic rock and the great artists of the 60s and 70s who were truly psychedelic and revolutionary. All this bullshit. The importance we had was only held by ourselves. In these past 4 years post my DIY for free, you know, music career. It's not even a career, it's just a hobby that defined my life for many, many years. That's what it was. And I always failed to recognize it as such. I saw it as myself. My music was me. The music I listened to was me. And it's just such a fragile place to put one's identity. it's equal to, you know, what many of us do with associating our thoughts as us. We are our thoughts. When in reality, we might not have much control over our own thoughts, let alone our situation, our lifestyle situation. We're born into so many things that is coerced, is put upon us. Man is born free, but is everywhere in shackles. Is that Hume or Kant? I forget who, but and we willingly, you know, put the chains on ourselves. It's not like we're forced into the chains. We're given the shackles, and we cuff ourselves up with our own ideas of ourselves and how we're told to think about ourselves. And as a DIY musician, my definition was, we do it ourselves. Any money we make it off our own labor. But even then, we expect nothing of our audience, and we'll give everything away for free and give ourselves away willingly with no payment, no monetary, no physical, barely an emotional payment. Going to DIY shows was not a fun thing. It's showing up on the scene and showing your cred, showing how much you deserve to be there, how willing you were to take the lifestyle, how far you were willing to take it, how poor you were willing to live, how dirty, how broken you were willing your music to sound, how unfinished, how unpolished. And it's largely a scene of imperfection, and aesthetics were completely thrown out the window for the most part. It didn't matter what the bands sound like, it was the image. It was the image of who we presented ourselves as that mattered, and how it related to people's definition of who we were supposed to be. And at this point, I'm largely under the mindset of fuck that. I'm withdrawing from all of that. I don't need your definitions, and I don't need these roles. I need to go, step away from it all, and find my own clear definition of myself. Anyways, I'm running out of time. Thanks for watching. This is FLOWTOX. It's ifeigle. If you have comments, hit me up in the comment section below. Hit subscribe, or you can find me on Twitter at _FEIGLE, ifeigle on Twitter. Anyways, FLOWTOX 2020. Peace and love.